Hey, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to talk about the cybersecurity related news that came out in November. This is the Cybersecurity Strategic Report for November 2023. So this month has been packed in terms of people related news. So there have been a couple of cybersecurity incidents that affected major organizations last month, and I want to cover some of them here. But also there's been a lot of process related information. So let's take a look at what NIST CISA have released over the last month. Let's dive in. Starting off with some major news that happened in Australia. There was a major outage for Optus customers at the beginning of the month. This caused many businesses and customers to get offline or intermittent access to their services, their cloud services and their internet services for some time. Later on, after some investigation, it was realized what the problem was. It turned out the problem was related to changes to the routing information, so this ended up affecting a lot of customers. This is a good reminder for any service provider or anyone dealing with cybersecurity management and IT management to ensure that your change management processes are fully realized and in full action whenever you push out changes. Okay, so just a good reminder in order to avoid downtime and avoid loss of availability of your services. Next up is some piece of news around Toyota. A subsidiary from Toyota, Toyota Financial Services, has been found in the midst of a hack. So they were targeted by a ransomware group called Medusa, and they were ransomed for an $8 million ransom note, stating that this group had stated that they had stolen data from this particular victim and that they were about to release that data if the ransom wasn't paid. Details are still scarce to this date, but according to this report here by Bleeping Computer, what we can say is Toyota's announcement has been scarce, but they stated that the impact has been minimal, theoretically, so much so that they took certain actions in certain systems offline to investigate the incident further, and also they're working with law enforcement to mitigate some of those issues and find out the culprit for sure. But also they stated that they were about to bring up systems back on their way in most countries, in fact, upon the release of this particular report from Bleeping Computer. Just a reminder, Toyota has been on the headlines for cybersecurity incidents for a few years now. So this article from Ars Technica reminds us of past hacks that happened around Toyota. Toyota is a group, not just financial services that I've notified right now, but it states that they've been found victims as part of 2019, 2021, 2022, all very unfortunate. Some of these hacks have been due to supply chain attacks. Once again, a reminder for you to do your due diligence whenever you are working with providers, software providers as well, and ensuring that your sources are always as secure as possible. Next up, and there has been a company called DP World, in fact, and there has been some communications from the officials from the country, since this is a part of the logistics infrastructure of the country, and since the company withholds about 40% of logistics as part of ports in Australia, so they are one of the major players for that particular logistics operations in the country. So therefore, any impact to those kind of operations could take significant impacts overall in the overarching country infrastructure. So therefore, it's critical that this sort of services are not impacted. It's an unfortunate incident that happened, but what happened was that this particular organization, they were attacked by a particular group. Another report here by Financial Review would tell us that the particular incident was caused by a lack of patching for a vulnerability that had been publicly announced for a little while. So just improper patching management led to this incident here. And thus, there has been some scrutiny from ministers from Australia around this particular hack. But a good reminder for us in the industry to take basic security hygiene very seriously, right? So we should do patching, we should do the very basics, fundamentals of cybersecurity that I spoke about before, from some recommendations from Microsoft and other vendors as well. Next up, Microsoft and MITRE have discussed their collaboration on the Atlas framework, Atlas is a MITRE framework for AI security, and this particular announcement here, announced last month, states that there has been improvements to the Atlas framework with addition of new LLMs and, of course, a little bit more information added to the Atlas framework. So great news, piece of news there for threat hunters who are working with that framework. Next up, the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission in the US, is suing SolarWinds CISO and its CISO for fraudulent cybersecurity disclosures. This is a very important piece of news that happened at the end of October there, because it highlights how important the role of a CISO is, particularly when there is a disclosure, there is a breach, and the importance of companies and CISOs work together to be transparent to the public. The big problem with this with this particular case here is that the problem, though, is that, of course, SolarWinds is a publicly traded company. It has a lot of dependencies for shareholders, for the public people, for its customers as well. And what happened was, according to the SEC document here, what happened was SolarWinds and the CISO made materially false and misleading statements and omissions related to SolarWinds cybersecurity risks and practices in at least 3 types of public disclosures. And they highlight here which are these 3 public disclosures here. So statements that purported to describe the company's cybersecurity practices and policies, also form, registration statements, and periodic reports filed with the SEC through the relevant period, and a particular form filed with the SEC on December of 2020 regarding the massive sunburst cybersecurity incident that impacted SolarWinds Orion software, for example. So they are being part of this unfortunate action here against themselves or against those particular parties due to this kind of information. So that's something to keep in mind, and of course to practice due diligence whenever there are particular incidents that you're resolving, you're working towards, and you're working on. Next up, roadmap for AI. CISA announced their own roadmap for AI for public. This was published in mid-November, and what it highlights is essentially how CISA is going to tackle roadmap for AI from their front. The document is open, so anyone can open it up and download it. But essentially, they touch on the 5 lines of effort. I like this diagram and image right here because it highlights what these 5 lines of effort are for CISA, essentially looking at responsible use of AI that supports their mission, the assurance of AI systems, and then protecting infrastructure from malicious use of AI, collaborating with other agencies, public, and even international partners, and lastly, expanding AI expertise in the workforce. So these are all their essentially mantra, if you will, for how they're going to tackle AI from their perspective. What we can take out of this as cybersecurity practitioners is, of course, naturally learning what leading cybersecurity agencies are doing in that front and replicating or using that as a template or just working with them. So understanding what the role is on the basis of these efforts by CISA. So good information here. Of course, if you want more details, find the link in the description of this video. And just a reminder, if you like this kind of report, make sure you like and subscribe because I try to come up with them at least once a month. Next up, NIST released a document for public commentary. It's an initial public draft. The document is for data classification concepts and considerations for improving data collection. So great kind of document for anyone protecting and governing data in organizations. So anyone working with Microsoft Purview from a technology perspective should be looking at this document. And if you want to make comments, you have until the end of January, or the beginning of January, in fact, to submit your comments to the required parties here. So you can submit your form and go through the official page here to learn more about how to contribute to this document. Next up, CISA published a mitigation guide specifically targeting healthcare and public health sectors. So this here is a great guide for anyone working in this industry to understand the basics, the fundamentals of what you should look for in order to mitigate high-level vulnerabilities that generally target or that are generally found against these sectors, for example. Plus, there are a lot more recommendations there as well. So the guide here looks at specific domains and how to tackle them. For example, There are 4 main domains that they look at. So this is a report, and the mitigation strategies cover 4 domains: asset management and security, identity management and device security, vulnerability patch and configuration management, and there is a small section there around how to shift towards a more secure future with recommendations for secure by design. So great report here and a great guide for you working in the healthcare and public sector domains. Next up, technology. So Microsoft held its Microsoft Ignite 2023 in November, and alongside it, a raft of announcements for all their technologies, not just cybersecurity, not just security, identity, purview related news, but a lot more. Of course, in the context of my channel, I'm covering all the security related news here. If you haven't seen, Microsoft releases a book of news, which is one link public page with all the summary of announcements that they've made. What I'm showing here on screen is this particular document. We have the security section right here where we can just navigate through it and read more about each of these announcements. But of course, if you don't have time to go through all of this, I recorded a video about this. Make sure you have a look at that or listen to it on Spotify, on my podcast, if you will, if you want to learn more about this. There's been a lot of interesting announcements from Microsoft, including how Microsoft Defender or Defender XDR, which used to be called M365 Defender. So Defender XDR integrates with Sentinel in one portal now. There's a private preview for this. There's also Security Copilot embedded into that portal as well, but Security Copilot embedded into other portals of the platform, of the Microsoft Security Platform. More SKUs for Security Copilot. So Copilot on top of feeding data from Sentinel and being able to interact with Sentinel data, Defender XDR data in Tune, it's now able to feed and, of course, interact with data from Defender External Attack Surface Management, from Purview, from Entra, and a lot more. So then all of these announcements are part of Ignite. So I highly recommend you have a look if you haven't gone through that yet. There's a lot of Defender for Cloud news as well. Defender for APIs included, or plan for the Defender for APIs, a plan for DevOps, part of Defender for Cloud, integration with Entra permissions management within Defender for Cloud portal. Even more information from Defender for Cloud from perspective of multi-cloud for attack path feature as well, which is very exciting. And for Purview, there's a lot more, including DLP alerts being included into, or incident risk management enrichment into DLP alerts. For example, Entra access features that are very exciting. So you can fully replace a VPN now with Entra access, private access with zero trust network access, or ZTNA based policies based on your conditional access and Entra ID controls. So very exciting pieces of news. Make sure you have a look at the book news, the video if you don't have time there. I highly recommend you have a look at all those pieces of news. And lastly, Microsoft, as part of Ignite, they released a publication, essentially a work trend index special report there. This report covers how Copilot helps workers improve their work. So I highly recommend you have a look at this. But the highlights here state that 70% of Copilot users said they were more productive, and 68% said it improved the quality of their work. Overall users were 29% in a series of tasks. So I leave you this very great reference for thorough digestion. So I'll leave this up to you, but I will highlight this here. This image right here is very important to me. The ability for Copilot to summarize missed meeting and to search for information on your behalf, they are amazing, right? So just be aware of these kind of capabilities. They're really productivity changers for the workforce. And that's my perspective. And that's it for this piece of news for November. Hopefully you found this useful, and some of the information has been of use for you. Some of the recommendations that we can, and insights that we can gain out of these pieces of info have been useful for you. And again, if you do like this kind of report and this kind of video, leave a like, subscribe, because that's what I try to bring to the feud and to the community here in this channel always. All right, see you next time.